Our Father, who art in heaven, justice be thy name. Thy silver stone, thy will be done totally. Look, God, I love you, man. And I was wondering if you could help me out here. You know, the British Grand Prix didn't go so well for me, and qualifying for the German race was a whole heap of sirotkin. So, do you think you could, help me out? I mean, just a little bit for the race? Thanks. Yours, Lewis. Amen.
Okay, Lewis.
God? Is that you? Praise be.
No, Lewis. It's James from the strategy department. You pocket dialed me.
Oh, right. So I guess my prayer won't be answered.
No, it's all right, mate. If you catch up with Bottas, we'll just tell him to pull over.
Hallelujah. Hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed, and if you listen carefully you will hear that the ceiling is slightly higher than usual and that there is a bird tweeting and possibly a spy plane circling above our heads. We're recording Gareth Jones on Speed in the garden. I'm Gareth, he's Zog.
Hello.
And he's Richard.
Hello.
Are you sure that's a spy plane, Richard?
Well,
we
yes.
were trying to figure this out. I was convinced by your argument. I now believe it's a spy plane.
I've mentioned this on Twitter before, and people have either backed me up or gone, shh, don't mention the spy plane. There are these little twin-engine prop planes that circle London, and I believe they're sucking up mobile phone signals and I guess looking for keywords that may be terror-related or whatever, or in criminal activity, I don't know, and the MI5 have to and the Met have to, and it's freely available. You can read this stuff online. Look, can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Hang on, let's let them hear it a second. La, la.
But that little fella's been over us. We've been out here for, 15 minutes now before we started recording, and he's been over about half a dozen times. It's just the thing, you see it, I'm particularly on days like this, it's a lovely, clear summer's day, and the sun's just going down, and it catches the plane, it just twinkles off it, and the clear air, you can sort of hear the engine note a bit more than if it's muffled by
clouds. The bit
clouds.
that I'm a little bit sceptical about, however, is that
Where is he?
I would be surprised.
There he is, look.
He's directly above my head.
There you go, yeah.
Hello.
I would be surprised if MI5 or the Met needed a flying spy to snoop on mobile communications, on mobile phones. I figure they would have much more direct and simple means of doing that if they should do it.
Are they concerned about
assume
podcasters, though, boys?
Well, they might be, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe they're
Why would
just...
you do it for a plane? I can absolutely see why you might have a plane doing optical surveillance.
Yeah.
But I don't see why you would need it to...
Well, they do that as well. There's an example in the States where a company does exactly that. Incredibly powerful cameras that can zoom into remarkable detail, identify cars and even sort of not identify people, I don't think, but certainly you say, oh, there's a guy in a red shirt, they could pick up that, and they've used it to solve crimes because what they do is they work backwards. So if someone commits a crime and then drives off, they'll then just work out where their car went.
If you have a sufficient archive of high-resolution material...
Well, that's the thing that they do.
That.
I mean, imagine their servers must be huge, but they're constantly taking pictures. Anyway, I've looked up a lot about this plane. I'm slightly obsessed with the little twin-prop plane that circles London, seemingly all the time. And once you notice it, you can never unnotice it. I promise you, tomorrow you'll go, there he is again.
Yeah,
but when you look it up, there's a lot of aeroplane forums, and there's a lot of people who are either actual pilots or know-alls. Yeah,
pilots,
exactly. There's nothing worse.
Who are going to be great sources of information.
Yeah, but whenever they
sure.
talk about these spy planes over cities, because apparently they go over Manchester and Leeds and places as well, but whenever they talk about them, someone will go, I don't think we should be discussing this in the public domain. You're like, well, it's a plane, you can see it from the ground. It's hardly that secret, is it?
Richard, have you been spending more time thinking about spy planes than Formula One recently?
Yes.
Thought so.
Because I find spy planes more interesting.
Oh, come
That's
on.
not true, no.
Let's be fair, because we've had a couple of absolute belting, if not three, cracking F1 races recently, not least of all the most recent one, the German Grand Prix. How good was that, Zog?
Incredible. Welcome back, German Grand Prix. I mean, we had a fantastic Saturday, the qualifying session. In the dying seconds of Q3, we have, in a context where Mercedes are a little bit on the back foot, Ferrari seem to have the quickest car. In the dying seconds, Bottas comes out with a stonking lap, puts it on pole, and from the reaction of Toto Wolff and others, they were not expecting that car to be on pole. And this is after Lewis Hamilton had the bad luck of whatever kind of hydraulic failure it was. And then a couple of seconds later, Vettel pips him with an even quicker time.
How much do you love Toto Wolff? Because
I do. I really do. He's fantastic.
We're getting all the reactions in the world from him. He bangs the table. His eyes almost pop out of his head. He's not the kind of guy, because he's a very successful manager and businessman. He's not a showbiz kind of guy. But even Violet caught an interview with Toto on TV the other day and turned around to me and said, wow, isn't he a nice guy? How can he be so successful and be a nice guy is the question.
Well, I don't think there's any paradox there at all, because I've just never bought this idea that good managers, successful managers or successful leaders have to be It's just rubbish. Yeah. It's just not the case. So I don't see any paradox in that at all.
But he's unusually nice, isn't he?
I think
there's a steel and a grit.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mess with him, but I'd also love to go for a pint with him.
Yeah,
he seems like he'd be really good fun.
Yeah, I wouldn't mistake his politeness and his courtesy for any lack of steel and lack of resolve. And in fact, it struck me this weekend, we're in a very good period right now for F1 competition, not just in terms of the teams, not just because we've got Mercedes and Ferrari and sometimes Red Bull really going at it on a pretty level field. We've got tremendous rivalry between Vettel and Hamilton, which is giving some terrific racing. We've also got, I think, a great competition between really terrific managers. We've got in Toto Wolff and in Arriva Bene, we've got absolutely magnificent managers pushing their teams to achieve all this. So, I think that these guys are absolutely one of the reasons why we've got such good racing at the moment.
I wouldn't mind going for a drink with Arriva Bene, actually.
Yeah.
Do you know what, though? You wouldn't go for a drink with him, would you? You'd go to a very small restaurant.
You'd
have a hell of an afternoon out.
You'd end up smoking fags with him outside, I reckon.
Marlboro
I reckon he
Reds
smokes
as well.
fags.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. Marlboro, of course, yes.
You'd have a boozy lunch. At which point I'd be sort of like a bottle of wine in and I'd lean across the table and go, actually, I'll tell you what, mate, can I have one of them? I gave up smoking years ago, but I'll have one of them, thank you. And then the next thing you know, you're going, no, it's all right, I'll find a shop. There's a shop around the corner, I'll go and get another packet, don't worry, mate. And he's like, no, you ever wanted to get a tattoo? And I'd be like, I think I have, actually.
And then you're waking up the next morning with Maurizio on your arm.
You've made a good point.
With a Marlboro logo above it as well. I just go, oh my God, that was an afternoon.
You've made a good point, though, there, Z, because we often see Formula One as the battle of the the battle of the Formula One drivers, but there's so much more to it than that. We're always reminded that it's a team sport, but you're right, it's about the managers holding it together. And what you've got is a recovering Ferrari at the moment, thanks to Arriva Bene. He's got a team with a great engine, a great spirit, a bit of confidence, and the performance to match their confidence at the moment. And at the same time, this plateau which Mercedes have managed to put themselves on is faltering ever so slightly. But you cannot fault Lewis as a driver. More and more, I'm liking Lewis more and more. I always thought he was great. I know he's got a great car, driving through the field on a number of occasions. Making that first lap of Senna at Donington, do you remember that famous lap? Lewis does that on a regular basis at the moment.
He's incredible. I mean, he really is a spectacularly talented driver. In the race in Germany, sure, he had a couple of bits of luck to just push things his way, but to come from 14th to win that race was remarkable, and he had to be absolutely on it. The way that in that first stint, by the end of that stint, his tyres were pretty shabby, but he was still putting the lap times in, and then to be able to exploit the tricky conditions when it's raining a little bit on one part of the track, dry on another, drying here, wet, exploiting those conditions to win the race. Not just a champion's drive, but one of the very best champion's drives. It was
correct.
Spectacular.
Richard, I know you've struggled to watch the race because of stuff going on at the moment in your universe.
I'll be honest, I didn't realise that it had even rained during that race. I didn't watch the race, as I've confessed to you already.
And you haven't seen the highlights?
No. So what happened, Sunday, my wife had arranged for us to go over to some friend's house, and I thought, well, it's lovely weather. I'm not going to go. No, I'm not coming because I'm going to watch the Grand Prix because I'd rather be outside. I'll catch it on the highlights. We were on our way over there and she went, no German Grand Prix then? And I went, nope. no, going to sit it out. And she's like, I'm impressed, well done, that's good. And then we got there, and I was secretly thinking that our mate Connor would maybe put it on the telly.
Yep.
And then during lunch, we had a late lunch, and then some...
Here come the F1 police coming off, by the way.
Yeah. Some lovely, refreshing, boozy drinks. And I was sort of checking... I couldn't resist. I was checking the race on my phone. And I thought at that point, he's going to go, what are you doing? Because it was a bit rude. And no one called me on it. Not one person went, what are you doing on your phone, you rude So, because I was hoping, there's a Grand Prix on. And our mate would go, oh yeah, I forgot, hey, I tell you what, let's just put it on in the, and it's like, it's North London, so of course they've got bifold doors, everyone has, darling, and so the back of their house is all open and you can see through to a telly, and I thought, this would be perfect, and he just puts it on the telly there, I don't even need the volume up, I'll get the gist. Yeah, and just sit here, and it's like, and then we can watch all our children playing together, and the sun's shining, and another beer, and I just thought, this is idyllic. But what would make it perfect is if I just have, just line of sight on the German Grand Prix would just for the last half an hour. That's okay. And yeah, it didn't happen, and I didn't feel I could ask because I thought it might kill the atmosphere.
You say you didn't know it rained during the race. It seemed that some of the teams weren't too sure whether it was raining or not during the race.
And some of the teams thought it was torrential.
Yeah. I actually offer a strategy service to the teams, and they didn't know I wasn't watching. So,
you want to give Toro Rosso a ring right now because
no, they've already rung. God, they're really cross with me.
They left you a message during the race. Hi, Richard. So we're just wondering what kind of tyre we should put on this next pit stop. I don't know.
Full wets. What do you think?
Snow tyres, maybe. I don't know.
Studs.
We'll just grab the first ones out of the box and slap them on.
But you missed the key moment in the race, I think, which is what helped Lewis win the race ultimately, not having Bottas pull over to him by. But it was a bit where Lewis was told to come into the pits, and he started the manoeuvre, he entered the pit, and as he started that, they then said to him, no, get back this gun, and he had to cross a curb and a bit of grass and get back onto the start-finish straight.
It's very hard to actually figure out what happened in that moment, though, because, I saw that a couple of times during the race coverage, when they replayed it, and I don't think the audio was ever synced the same way with the video each time. And I don't think it was ever synchronised with the picture as it was at the time.
It's always delayed. The audio's always delayed.
But they could have resynced it, but they didn't.
I've discovered how much the audio is delayed, or can be delayed, because I went to the British Grand Prix and I was a guest of Mercedes, the road car people, but they had a guy from the team there who had a couple of headsets that were wired straight into the team radio.
Right.
And you could take it in turns. Now, thankfully, when you go to these things, they sort of, like, a lot of people there, they're not really F1 fans. They're there because it's kind of a cool thing to do.
They want a nice day out.
So although when they were given the headsets, they were like, oh, well, you can hear him talking. There's long periods of silence when nothing's going on. And also, if you're just there because you've bought, like, 7 S-classes in a row or something, and you're not really into motorsport, you'll kind of go, I didn't really understand what they were saying there. Here, you can have the headphones back. So I hogged the headphones for ages.
Good lad, correct.
It's amazing how, and we had the TV on where we were standing, and we had little radios with commentary and stuff as well, so we could keep abreast of what was going on. And I realised that stuff we were hearing live on those headsets would sometimes be like a minute or two before it appeared on the telly. And obviously they're not taking everything as well. So I think that minute or two is not only there's someone sitting, or it's probably a team, isn't there, sitting in the FOM TV compound going, oh, that's quite interesting. Yeah, but then they're making sure that it's not too sensitive yet. And it's not swearing in or anything like that. Yeah.
Although they did put some stuff out with swearing in it and bleeped it. Quite a lot of stuff. Particularly when poor old Vettel went in the wall, came off at the Sachs curve, and he just said, oh, sake, 3 times, and they bleeped it 3 times.
The third one was it wasn't.
That's right, correct. Sorry.
But, well, no, but I think they've partly got the bleep machine in because weren't some of the drivers swearing deliberately to make radio messages unusable on the TV?
Oh, is that right?
Because they were fearing that this was a competitive advantage if some of their stuff. So where they'd normally have gone, my tyres are going off, they were going, my tyres are going off. And that meant that then they couldn't put it on the telly, so the other teams couldn't go, oh, his tyre's going on.
But I think that sounds like rubbish to me, because I was under the impression that the other teams could listen to everyone's team radio in any case, so it doesn't matter what goes on TV.
I thought that as well, but I'm sure I heard that maybe that was a while ago.
It sounds like
in the same way that it's a Ferrari were talking in Italian, weren't they, to Vettel speaks Italian, doesn't
He does, yeah, a bit.
And I think they were talking Italian on the radio.
Yeah.
Again, just stop the other
because
teams.
Nobody who doesn't work for Ferrari speaks Italian. That's going to work very well. Yeah. Wow, that explains it. That makes total sense. Come on, is that
It's
really
amazing, isn't it? Did you have a little language when you were a kid? That you'd have like a secret language with one of your mates or something?
Yeah, Welsh.
A crackable code, I feel. Although one that may take a little while. This is our new head of tyre development, Justin Priest. We've had to get him in, not because he's any good at tyres, but because apparently they're yapping away on the radio at McLaren.
It's hardly getting Navajo wind talkers in, is it?
Yeah.
Wind talkers. Nice.
In the Second World War, one of the military codes that the US Army came up with, they had native Navajo speakers to send coded communication during a lot of their Pacific operations, because they were absolutely confident that there were no speakers of the Navajo language in Japan. It would be an uncrackable basis for military communications.
That's what Haas, as the American team, should be doing, isn't it? If you think about it, Haas should have some First Nation people there on the radios. They should teach Grosjean how to speak Sioux.
Or, I mean, you could just employ Geordies or something. I mean, a lot of people have trouble with that. Or Glaswegians.
I think Williams and Ferrari in the past have tried the Northeastern thing, haven't they?
Kind of just really fast
just get Rubens Barrichello back.
Yeah, Scottish.
I think that's a much simpler way, although, of course, a lot of the other teammates wouldn't be able to understand. Anyway,
bringing it back to the sensible side of the sport, we've got a corking blooming season at the moment again, haven't we? I mean, the drama, it's one of those races that if you'd written it out, as of course Bernie used to, right, this is how this race is going to play out, nobody would have believed it. Vettel makes a tiny mistake and throws the race away. Lewis drives from 14th. Bottas races with his teammate and then is instructed to pull over. Kimi is quicker than Vettel. None of that stuff is realistic, is it? And yet it actually happens.
Yeah, it happens from time to time. And I think it's going to carry on. You know, we've got Mercedes and Ferrari are absolutely matching each other, you know, punch for punch, really.
And they're each winning the other's races at the moment, aren't they? Ferrari are winning races Mercedes should win, and Mercedes winning races Ferrari should win. That's great.
So as we approach the summer break for Formula One, we've got the Hungarian Grand Prix this weekend, and then there's a break to Belgium.
That's right. Yep.
And it seems to me that the drivers and the constructors' title is still, I wouldn't say wide open. I don't think Sergei Sorokin is going to come in and clinch it for Williams. But I suppose my question is, when's the last time that we've entered the Formula One summer break with such a sort of hard-to-call championship? Because I can't remember. It always it feels like at this point, usually, I mean, I know it's sort of, you know, like when Massa and Hamilton were battling and stuff like that, could have gone either way. But it really does feel quite hard to call at this point.
But what was it Eugene Cernan used to say? Not Eugene Cernan,
Eugene Simmons. Gene Simmons. Gene Simmons, our Kiss.
Gene Kranz.
He used to say, blah.
He did. What was it? Gene Kranz, the flight director, used to say, don't give me data, measure the trend. And let's measure the trend across Formula One. We've had Ferrari in good shape, you know, potentially in a good shape to win the championship last year, but then throwing it away, not quite there. So the clue was there last year, and here they've moved on just enough to be seriously competitive with Mercedes. And the year before that, they weren't quite there either. So, yeah, it's been coming. We've seen it coming, but rather we didn't spot it. Even though it's coming.
But the other thing is surely that Mercedes have been dominant. It is very hard to maintain dominance.
But what's interesting is, because I think there have been examples of teams just losing their mojo. I mean, usually it comes with a sort of loss of a key person or an engine change or something like that. But it can all just go to cock, can't it? A bad car or something, just the drivers aren't quite happy with the chassis, whatever. But it's less that Mercedes have lost it and more that Red Bull and Ferrari have got it, up. Which I suppose is to your point that actually we should have seen this coming. It was there for the taking if they just got their shizzle together, and clearly they have. I can't get past that guy saying, don't give me data, give me the trend. When did he say that? In the 60s?
Yes.
Because all I can imagine is that guy out of Airplane, Phil, going, it's flared trousers, sir.
The trend. All right, Master Wolf. Where do you want this front wing, pal?
What?
He's asking where you want that aeroport, Mr. Wolf.
I can't understand you. What is he saying? Hey, mate, you know, he's asking where you want a splitter, so he is.
Hey, Totes, man, what's happening? Yeah, boy, innit? Oh, hi, the new Toto, darling. The baby needs feeding.
Oh, my God. This team is in accent chaos.
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
In the last few minutes since we were recording outside...
So you got distracted by the spy plane now
I
as
did,
well,
yeah,
still
yeah.
there?
The plane is still circling. It's a little quiet and not so many 757s going overhead. I should point out the reason that we came outside to record today was it was so blinking hot. What a blistering summer we're having. And it must have been...
You will not hear me complaining.
No, I love a bit of that. But I'm kind of sad that I wasn't at Goodwood to enjoy glorious weather at glorious Goodwood. But I did watch the stream. Did you watch the stream, the live stream, or do you watch the highlights?
I didn't watch the stream. I watched some of the highlights, and I greatly regretted being there.
Not being there.
Sorry, yes, quite right. Yeah, I greatly regretted not being there.
Richard, did you regret being there? Because you were there.
I am looking at Richard with some envy.
I didn't regret being there. It was nice. It was very hot. Yeah. It was very, very hot. And
yeah.
I know.
Who for you?
What was the highlight for you then? Don't say the champagne was free, and that was the highlight because it bet it was. That's a yes, isn't it? Yeah.
There was some... I didn't have any champagne. Anyway, let's not get bogged down in that. I think I had a glass of wine. Lovely, crisp white on a hot day. But we went to Goodwood on the Saturday and then stayed over and went in on the Sunday as well and made the wise tactical choice to leave sort of...
kind of before the hordes, before the big rush.
It was funny, actually. I don't know whether it was because it was so hot. Because the thing is, I'm pretty sure it was sold out by the time it came around. I don't know whether you can still get tickets on the door. I don't think you could. I think it had all gone. So it sells out pretty quickly these days. And so you sort of think that, everybody's got tickets, and the tickets are not cheap, that it would be at capacity all day. And actually, it felt quieter than in previous years. I don't think I went last year. I went the year before. Just felt quieter. You weren't kind of in some places sort of fighting through crowds almost. It was just a bit more spread out. And I don't know if it's also because they've redone the site a little bit. And there was that moving motor show thing they used to do. And there was a huge sort of long tent thing, the kind that Elon Musk uses to build cars in, basically. But it had sort of each manufacturer that chosen to buy space in there had their own little area. And it was always a bit odd because on the Thursday they used to let people take the cars out. I think, in fact, they had a bit of a problem with someone lost control of a car at low speed and sort of clattered into it, and I think people got hurt. But they meant that this tent had to be designed in such a way the cars could kind of drive off the stands and drive through the middle of it and go out, and then on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they just had them static because it was obviously more crowded. But it gave the place a sort of slightly soulless feel because it was just a big open tent, and they've got rid of that now. And I think it's partly because all the manufacturers are now just putting up stands. They're putting up effectively
like mini
motor show stands.
Yeah.
More than motor show stands.
They're huge, aren't they? They're like four-floor constructions.
Yeah, they're more complicated than motor show stands because they effectively have to be buildings because they're outdoors. They have an indoor bit to keep things dry, and so they can do sort of hospitality and stuff.
I love the way that they say things like, the car is making its static debut, or its dynamic debut at Goodwood. That's kind of a new phrase, really.
Well, that's the thing. I'll give you an example of how complicated these stands are. Someone told me that the Jaguar Land Rover stand, which I don't think they've had there before, I don't remember it, but it's huge, and apparently it takes 4 weeks to put up and 2 weeks to take down.
I had a tent like that, but you need a couple of hands.
It's always because you've lost a bit, isn't it? Yeah.
So what were the highlights?
I was very taken with, sort of Porsche's 70th birthday, or sort of the 70th since their first car. So they had this whole lineup of Porsches from across the years that was doing sort of regular runs up the hill, and it was proper sort of drooly
proper historic, real tasty.
I have to say, I was corralling 2 children. Well, actually, I mean, our little girl's only coming up to a year, so she relatively doesn't need much corralling, but she moves along on the floor now, so you have to watch it. If you put her down somewhere, quiet spot, and then you turn around and go, oh, God, she's over there now.
Oh, she's halfway up the hill.
Yeah, crawling up Lord March's trouser leg or something. That didn't happen. Also, apparently, he's not Lord March anymore. He's become the Earl
of Richmond, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
Duke
it.
of Richmond or
yeah,
something.
I knew it was somewhere in the outskirts of London. Earl of Watford. It's a bit disorientating. Although I was reminded that we once went to the Goodwood Ball on the Saturday night of the Festival of Speed. They have this ball. It's amazing.
I've done it.
It's fantastic, isn't it? Because you go... The thing that I regret not getting there earlier for is the champagne reception on the lawn at the back of the house before. Because you walk out there and they give you a glass of champagne, very nice. And then... No, that's the other one. That's the Revival where they do that thing where you can walk and watch the Spitfires landing.
No, this... Oh, no, you're right. That was the...
They have a tent out in the airfield.
Yes, it was the Revival. I take it back. You're quite right. Yes.
Balls we have known. And, but the Goodwood Festival of Speed one is in the house itself, the stately home, and you have a drinks reception on the lawn at the back. And you fetch up there, and you get your champagne, you turn around to talk to someone, and you accidentally elbow Jackie Stewart. And I always want to elbow Jackie Stewart at any event I go to. But no, it's just, and then you go, oh my God, there's Damon Hill. Oh look, there's Johnny Herbert. Oh wow, look, there's Alan Prost. And it's just everyone you've ever known of or admired in motorsport is sort of there, just standing around.
I remember having a fantastic conversation with Derek Bell and Tiffany Dell. The three of us locked in some... I can't remember what we were talking about. I was very drunk. But man, it's the stuff dreams are made of. But that's the beauty of Goodwood. The barriers are kind of down. Yes, if you're at the ball, definitely. But even so, when you're walking around the paddock before the cars go up and down the hill, you've got access to people and they will chat to you. It's a
very friendly
joy.
event.
It's very,
really
yes, there's a good atmosphere in that respect.
Kind of
and you can go and talk to people if you so choose. But I was reminded that we went to the ball and we were sitting at dinner in one of the rooms in Goodwood House, and then Lord March walked in, which it turns out he does because there's many rooms, many tables.
The former Lord March.
He was Lord March at that point, and he walked in because what he does is he does a little speech in each room to talk about the charities that they're giving money to at that event, and there are envelopes on the table and you're supposed to put a note in it and whatever. He walked in, I looked up. Now, I had some champagne and also some wine at this point, and went a little bit too loudly. Do you ever, you say something a bit too loudly, and it coincides with everybody else in the room going quiet.
Never happened to me, that. Ever. No.
Everyone else in the room has gone, here's Lord March. We shall now show a respectful silence as he's about to speak.
You didn't blow a raspberry, did you?
No. I went, bloody hell, it's Lord March. Which on reflection was patently obvious to, I think, everyone in the room, because he's quite well known. So if you're at the Goodwood Ball,
do you see a future career of yourself as one of those kind of guys in the tuxedo who announces people at diplomatic events? Bloody hell, it's the ambassador for the Ukraine!
Christ on a horse, it's the Bishop of Leicester!
Shitting hell, it's the President of France! No, someone else said that. They said, well, you know what, you could have maybe Lord March, now the Earl of wherever it is,
Earl of Grey.
Maybe he would like that you could be his announcer and you'll go everywhere with him. But, because he's a sort of younger member of nobility, that he maybe would like that touch. That wherever he goes, I just go ahead and go, ladies and gentlemen, bloody hell, it's Lord March! Anyway, that job request hasn't come in yet. So I know all that happened was I remembered this and I had a hot flush because it was actually really embarrassing.
But apart from that mishap...
It's one of those many, many moments where my wife just kind of goes...
I have a partner that does that as well.
So they had the VW Pikes Peak.
Oh, sorry, going back to that. That's enough of
which
my
won everything.
Shame. Yeah, so the Pikes Peak thing.
That was quick, wasn't it?
It's called the ID-R, isn't it? That's what they call it. I'd love to know what platform it's actually built on, but it's a sort of an LMP.
It's so bespoke for the job it was built to do, isn't it? Now, it's an interesting thing because there are a few sort of racing or supercar-y, concept-y EVs there.
The Neo
was there, which looks
came
terrific.
Second.
Looks really good. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? The EVs were pasting everything in their wake, but watching super high-performance cars going up the hill when there's very little sound takes some getting used to. I mean, they're impressive to watch, but contrasted to some of the wonderful sounds that you get from this huge range of old stuff.
And the NASCARs.
And
the Edwardian monsters. What do they call those cars? A great name for those cars. Not the Giants, the Leviathans. They've got a great nickname for them. I forget now.
Mother.
That's it.
The Porsche 919 Evo wasn't there, was it?
Not that I saw, no.
That slightly surprised me, given that it was their...
They did have a 919,
their
but
70th anniversary. I was expecting to see that going up the hill, given that they're doing this kind of lap of honour, breaking lap records left, right and centre, and by the way, if you haven't seen the video, the in-car video of the 919 EVA, taking about a minute off the Nürburgring lap record, check it out now.
Do you know what's weird about that in-car of that Nürburgring record is that if they'd rendered that in a computer game, you'd go, come on.
I know.
That's
I could do that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because what's interesting about that is I can't help feeling that this surely must be subjecting the driver to so many Gs. You're sort of getting to a point where it's almost... He can't go any faster because it would be
You're really pushing
painful
at
or
the
medically dangerous.
Hemorrhoids.
And he's getting hammered quite a bit. You look at how much his helmet's shaking around in the car with the bumps, and you wonder how much quicker you could go around.
You'd have to wear a
that
pressure
track.
suit, wouldn't you, like a fighter pilot?
Oh,
or
with
something.
those inflatable trousers.
Well, yeah, but except that the pressure's going in different directions. Because in a fighter jet, the G suit is stopping
the blood draining from
pooling
your brain
in your in the lower half of your body, whereas it's a completely different thing in a race car like that, where you're getting instantaneous high G forces as you get bumped around. You're going to get some high G forces in the corner, but that's one side of the body versus the other. That's not going to make you black out.
Well, because if you went around a racetrack that was predominantly, say, left-hand turns, you'd get out and you'd have an incredibly swollen right arm because all the blood had gone into it. Oh, is that not how the human body works?
It'd be a fun experiment to try.
Or just like one really chubby cheek. And then the other side you look really sort of chiseled. On one side you look like David Gandy, and the other side you look like Christopher Biggins.
You look really pale
just
down
sort of
one
wait.
side.
You have to, like a cartoon character, you have to go...
Do NASCAR drivers suffer from that? Or IndyCar drivers who do a lot of oval racing, are they asymmetric, I wonder? Slightly. I bet they are.
Maybe they are.
You just end up... Well, actually, no, because you must be bracing a bit against the G's.
Yeah.
And you end up with a neck that's very strong in one direction, incredibly weak in the other, like a crocodile's jaws.
You probably would end up with slightly asymmetric neck muscles, maybe.
I bet you do.
If you're a NASCAR doctor,
Well, I'm going to have to
let
look
us
at
know.
look at some pictures of NASCAR drivers and look how asymmetric they look. Unless, as soon as the race is over, they go straight to their training
Yes,
gym
dear,
and just do
I'm
lots
just
of the
looking at
other way.
high-resolution pictures of NASCAR drivers' necks. No, dear, there's nothing weird about that at all.
Once again, my wife would
Nothing
just
weird
go...
about it at all.
The cars at Goodwood that made the best noise were actually NASCARs. Did you see the truck? There was a NASCAR truck that went up that made an incredible noise and scored a fantastic time. I'm starting to
that,
reevaluate what I believe about NASCAR.
I think that was
was
driven by Mike Skinner, wasn't it?
Out of the streets, that's right, yes.
he's,
Unusual that a rapper
but he
with
was
a Brummy
also
accent
the
can do that.
never popular character, the American, on the first series of the Grand Tour.
Is that right?
And,
Is that right?
That didn't
know
really
that.
work out
He didn't
so
really
well.
catch it, no,
But I think one of the things that's a real shame is that Mike's a really good driver and we foolishly made him into a comedy character and didn't really ever...
boost his driving
credentials, which are actually probably even better than we thought. We portrayed him as a bit of a moron, and
Which I'm sure he's not.
He's not at all. It's weird because in a way he conforms to sort of various redneck stereotypes. He has a massive collection of guns, and as a kid he was, I believe, literally run out of town by the sheriff for being a bad teenager, stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like he's really into wine. Like, he really likes wine and stuff, which you go, well, no, that character trait doesn't work. Write that out. In real life, he's quite well travelled, and he comes to Goodwood every year and usually bangs in an amazing time in a NASCAR of some sort up the hill. So
I was very impressed.
He's handy, and he's a really nice bloke as well.
Little Billy Munger went up that hill like a pocket rocket as well. That was fantastic to see.
He was on the podium this weekend.
Was he?
Drank champagne out of his prosthetic leg.
No,
I
didn't see that.
Yeah, I know.
That's one up on Ricardo, isn't it? That's
Yeah, I know.
You
It's
can't
one of the
do
most
that.
amazing things. You just go, well, I mean, where do you even start with that?
Yeah.
It's an incredible story, and it's also the fact that he's sort of such resilience, but also such talent that he's able to come back and bang in a podium and then drink champagne out of a prosthetic.
I wonder if Zanardi and him have met up and had a conversation at all, because Alex Zanardi would be a tremendously useful man to talk to in that situation, wouldn't he?
Do you know what? It's funny because when my sometime colleague Richard Hammond had his big rocket car crash, he found it very useful talking to racing drivers who'd had big bangs that had resulted in head injuries, including Sterling Moss, who he ended up making a programme about Moss's big crash, when he headed the wheel and it sort of, really messed with his head. And Sid Watkins, the late Sid Watkins, and Hammond talked to him. But yeah, I think when people have that kind of quite specific and traumatic accident, somehow I think in sort of psychologically rebuilding yourself, it's quite useful to talk to people who've been in the same situation. So yeah, I would guess that. I wonder if Billy Munger has talked to Nadi.
Who else went up the hill at Goodwood? There were plenty of Porsches. There were a lot of Lolas, which warmed my heart. It being the 60th, I think, anniversary of
a lot of anniversaries
Lola.
this year. Do you know what's weird? Is it's 70 years of Porsche, but it's also 70 years of Lotus and of Land Rover. And they're all sort of muscling in. So Land Rover did a thing, I think, and I was going to go, I hope they go and door handle a Series 1 up the Goodwood Hill. So they kind of did their thing with a big formation of old Land Rovers, a whole range of them up the hill, I think on the Thursday, got that out of the way so they didn't sort of get in the way of all of these. Oh no,
not breaking down as
VW IDR's coming up, but unfortunately there's a Mark 1 Discovery still halfway up. Which did actually happen weirdly. I can't remember the cars now. Two of the Porsches, one caught up with the other and biffed into the back of it.
Oh no.
Really embarrassing.
Oh dear.
Oops.
On this anniversary thing, I guess there's a thing, these car companies that got their anniversaries from 1948, and I think Ferrari has an anniversary in 17.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't be 70. No, it'd be.
They were founded in. Oh no, wait.
Well,
It is 70.
It depends whether. I suppose
Yes,
it depends
it would
which
be.
bit of Ferrari you're talking about.
Yeah,
You
but
know.
I suppose as a sort of
as a road
independent company
car.
and a road car
Yeah,
maker.
yeah.
Yeah, because the F40 was out in 88 for the 40th sense F40. So yeah.
But I guess this is sort of reflecting a bit of history in the immediate aftermath of the Second World War. Europe was rebuilding its industries, and a lot of new industries and new companies are being born out of the winding down of wartime production and rebuilding of Europe. And that's where these companies are tracing their history back to,
Well,
those immediate
there's-
post-war years.
Definitely. There's two direct corollaries of that you could see in Land Rover, original Land Rover made of aluminium, because there was suddenly loads of aluminium left over from aeroplane production. And Lotus come from that sort of great heritage that's unique to Britain, where small sports car makers were able to hone what they were doing, and racing teams actually, because there were suddenly loads of airfields.
Empty airfields.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
so all of these sort of plucky chaps with enormous moustaches, who were probably also been flying fighter planes, they were looking for something to recapture that buzz. Well, I've put together, this sort of Austin 7 chassis, and I've tuned it up a little bit. And I tell you what, let's go down to what used to be RAF, Titworth or something, and let's have a little zoom around, and we'll see how it goes. And that is where our sort of great small sports car maker heritage comes from, and Lotus, I guess, part of
It's
that.
absolutely, yeah.
Although at the moment I'm just finishing a Grand Tour book, which is an A to Z of the car. It's meant to be sort of the usual whimsical nonsense, but because it's an A to Z, it's got to have some facts in it. And I've been learning some things that I didn't know. I know, just one or two. I promise no more.
Go on,
But
2 facts.
okay, it's a good one. The founder of MG, Cecil Kimber, he died in a train crash, which I thought was a bit ironic. In 1945.
As opposed to MG Car Company, which died in a car crash.
Oh, it was good. What was that?
Don't know. What was that?
A cat clambering over
Yeah, it
a...
Either a
sounded
cat or a squirrel, or the spies have
the people from
parachuted
the
out
spies plane have radiated
and at the other
off
side of the
somewhere.
fence.
That's what it'll be.
Oh, what's another good fact? Oh, do you know who... Oh, this is not a particularly interesting one. Do you know who Japan's first car company was?
Was it Mitsubishi?
No.
Okay.
Oh, wait, was it? Hang on, now I'm getting... No, I think it was Nissan. I
Nissan.
probably should check this. Also, do you know 2 good facts about Mazda? One, they started out as a company that processed cork.
Wow.
That's
good.
Which is better than Kia, who started out as a company that made steel tubing. A lot of these car
that's
companies
too
started out
close.
as
That's a big,
because they went steel
cork
tubing.
car
They
manufacturing.
went steel tubing, bicycles, cars.
Yeah.
But also Mazda. The Mazda logo, the way it's written out. There's the logo with the sort of little wings, but their name as it's written out, it's quite a distinctive typeface they use. And if you look at it, it's lowercase except the D, which is an uppercase D, but it's all in line. And the reason they did that is they wanted all the letters to line up top to bottom in perfect precision to show the precision of their engineering. And the lowercase D would have poked up above.
Yeah.
Why they didn't just make everything uppercase, I don't know, but that is why the Mazda logo, if you look at it, has a kind of typographical anomaly.
That
in
is
it.
very... I like that. I'm going to.
And I can't even remember what was my original bit of trivia I was going to tell you about.
Topography facts.
Have I distracted you?
Something else. This is something that someone told me at Goodwood, which is not in my book. Maybe it should be. Original Land Rovers made of aluminium for the reasons we just talked about, but there was a licence-built Land Rover made in Belgium, which had a steel body because the Belgians didn't have a surface of aluminium, so where almost
you've
all
got a
Land Rovers have
steel-bodied
aluminium
Land
bodies
Rover.
to this day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's made in
steel-bodied,
Belgium.
they're called Minervas.
In Belgium, I
Yeah,
had
and they're
no
not,
idea.
Do you know what? Also, apparently
I've
they're
heard
not
them now, yeah.
particularly sought after, in as much as, they don't command any particular
Really?
rate. Series 1 Land Rovers are really expensive now, and those Minervas are not. And apparently you can just switch out the panels for aluminium.
So when was it? Because they built
the steel body one's going to rust.
They
so,
built the Allegro in Belgium, didn't they?
They did,
and the
yes.
Mini, I think, didn't
Yes,
they? Yeah,
yes.
in knockdown kits, was it?
I don't know how much it was knocked down and how much they were stamping it. There was quite a big factory in Sniff, in Belgium.
Sniff, right.
Until quite
Yeah.
recently, I don't know if it's still there, but it's now sort of, I think, a retail park and all sorts of stuff. But there's a
Yeah.
big metal sign, and you can see on the top of it one of the bits, it almost looks like a totem pole, and one of the bits you can still see it says British Leyland on it.
Or Belgian Leyland.
Belgique Leyland. Small bit of trivia on that in the 70s when Longbridge was on strike a lot, if you were a BL manager, you were entitled to an Allegro. You could get one from the Belgian factory instead, and they cottoned onto the fact the ones from the Belgian factory are often better made. So if you were a canny BL manager, you would put in a request for a Belgian car when Longbridge was on strike, so that you could get one. It would probably start in the morning a bit better, apparently. Anyway, I can't remember what we're talking about. Goodwood. We're going to wrap up about Goodwood. So yeah, Lotus weren't doing much with their 70 that I could see. It felt a bit Porsche dominated it so much, and they had their big sculpture and things like that. And you sort of went,
Where's
what's
Lotus?
I'm
What are
guessing
they up
because
to?
Lotus sort of don't have as much money as Porsche,
Well, I
so
was
they
gonna
can't
say,
kind
yeah,
of go.
I mean,
But it felt like Goodwood in the English countryside
Yeah,
and all
yeah,
that.
yeah.
That you'd have gone. England's sports car maker might have been able to muster up a bit. I don't know, unless I wasn't paying attention, but it didn't
maybe
feel
this
like.
very much reflects Lotus's current fortunes.
Well, but they're supposed to be
They're
making
in good
money.
shape now, thanks to Geely. Geely have invested a fair amount, haven't they?
Well, not
What?
really.
Really?
No. The word on the street is that partly also because that guy, his name is Jean-Marc Galles, has just left, who's the boss of Lotus. But possibly because I think when Geely bought Volvo went, right, here's what we'd like to do. Mm-hmm. We'd like brand new range of engines that we've got in the pipeline. We'd like to go with that. We're going to do brand new platforms, and we'll do this and that. Here we go. And they just went, okay, how much do you need? I imagine it was more complicated than that, but that was the essence
But that was
of it.
basically what happened, sure.
And
Yeah.
Lotus, having sort of scrapped the Danny Baha plan a few years ago,
Which was basically to take over the entire universe.
yes, with 7
With a-
different cars and
Yeah.
Mickey Rourke and Brian May and Naomi Campbell. Lotus maybe are perhaps still putting together a strategy, and that Geely don't really know what to do with them. Certainly the road car side. I mean, I'd be shocked if they haven't gone to the engineering side, which has always been more profitable,
Yep.
and said, if you've got a spare minute, lads, come and help out. It's not really a massive secret that Lotus have worked with Volvo before, way back in the 80s. Lotus did loads of stuff on the 480 and the 440, and so I imagine maybe there's still some people there who remember that. But yeah, at the moment, Geely don't know what to do with Lotus and vice versa. So I don't think there's a massive amount of investment. I mean, last I heard, there was the sort of the start of the Baha engineering block, which is going to be a whole new building, was just a metal frame. They might have taken it down by now. I don't know. I don't know what's going on up there. Thing is, no one goes up there unless they have to, because it's really far away. So
It seems to me like Lotus should be trying to establish themselves as the hybrid and electric sports car company. That should be a niche that they should be.
Well, they'll
going
have
for.
access to that sort of technology through Geely's ownership of
Yeah.
Volvo and Polestar. Whether they can make it light enough to
Well, yeah,
make it
and
fit into Lotus's IP is the issue,
don't
isn't
forget,
it?
Geely also own the London Taxi Company, and
Of
they've
course.
got that plug-in hybrid taxi. Seen them around now.
Yeah, everywhere.
I really want to ride in one, and in fact, a guy who does their PR has said I can have a go in one as a driver, but I really want to ride in
Oh, well,
one.
actually, yeah. Well,
And I sort of
I need
see
to get
them
to the
on the
airport
street,
tomorrow
yeah.
morning. So
Okay, see what I can do.
Pick us up at 7:30, maybe.
But I see those new electric cabs on the street, and I always go, "Oh, I'd love to have a ride in one." And I always think, if I just hailed it, but then he'd go, "Where to, mate?" And I'll go, "Oh, don't know, wherever you fancy, really. Just bring us back here. Just do a
drive
loop,
around.
just a couple of miles around." Yeah. And then-
How about somewhere that's
No,
what's-
what you want, if you don't care where you're going, just get in and go, follow that car.
There you go.
Gareth Jones on speed.
As you know, Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London, in North London, and as 3 car enthusiasts, they're closing in on us because there's going to be some new legislation which will affect the 5 million people that live in London, is that right? Or is it more than that?
It's more than that.
Oh,
Is
well,
it more than that?
yeah, London's about
10 million,
10 million.
10 million, sorry.
It depends exactly where you draw the bound. Well, this is,
Yeah.
depends where you draw the boundary.
So I know it's not everyone listening to this podcast, but a large number of people will be affected by this legislation, which is a ultra-low emission zone. Is that what it is?
The change that's coming in is the London congestion charging zone is being supplemented. They're introducing this ultra-low emission zone, which is an additional charge. But the really significant thing is the expansion of the ultra-low emission zone out to the North and South Circular. So rather than there being this small zone in the centre of London that it's pretty easy to avoid, if you want to avoid a congestion charge and then the additional charge for a more polluting vehicle that you might get on top of that, this will become the ultra-low emission zone, and it will be expanded to the North and South Circular as of October 2021.
Crikey.
And this is a zone that will be in operation 24 hours a day, every day of the year. This isn't 9 in the morning till 6 p.m. or 9:30 to 6:30, whatever the hours are.
So the upshot of that is what? Every time you go out in your car, you have to pay?
The upshot is that if your car doesn't meet Euro 4 emissions standards, I'm not sure what and maybe Euro 6 for diesels, I think it's about right.
Because here's the thing. I live inside the North Circular, but not far away from it, and my 10-year-old Porsche won't have to pay the charge for being in the ULEZ, but my 3-year-old Land Rover will.
Because it's older technology, basically.
Yeah, I'm talking about the 3-year-old.
Although the vehicle is newer.
Yeah,
it's an older design.
It's
a previous generation.
It's to do with the emission standards which they're applying the cut-off. For diesels, it's more stringent. So I guess it's all about air quality and stuff, and diesel particulates and all that sort of stuff. So but it's such that I could put my Land Rover, if I could find a garage, I could sort of stash my Land Rover just outside the North Circular, and then I suppose just walk to go and get it or something. But it feels a bit like that's silly.
Yeah, but it would be your home address that it's registered to would be the thing, and you'd have to move your house to outside the North Circular.
Well, no, see, that's the thing. But if you register it for your home address, but the thing is, I don't think you have to register it, do you? You just have to pay, the same as congestion charge.
Oh, I see.
I'm wondering if you get a reduced rate if you live within it. I can't remember if they've said that yet.
If I understand correctly, you can register as a resident for some kind of reduction on the charge, I think, between 2019 and 2021.
Right.
But after 2021, no, there are no exemptions, there are no reductions, there's no resident discount. Basically, if you are within the North and South Circular and you have an older vehicle, a newer car should meet the necessary emissions regulations, so you won't get a daily charge. But if you've got an older vehicle, you're going to have to pay a daily charge every time not every time you use your vehicle, every day that you use your vehicle,
right,
you're going to get a charge.
Which seems incredibly unfair on people who haven't got enough money to buy a newer car.
Well, I have kind of mixed feelings about this, because on one hand, I don't like the idea of having to pay. I think it's actually going to be about 20 quid a time, isn't it? Because because I think it's 2 lots of 10 quid, I believe. Again,
but I don't know how they're going to police this, because
it's easy enough. You've got cameras all over the place. If you're
on
the road,
the size of the North and South Circular, so presumably it won't be on all the entry points, because that would be almost unmanageable. Imagine the number of roads that sort of cross the North and South Circular.
I don't see why, given the number of years that they've had to fine-tune dealing with this stuff within the Central London congestion charge, I don't see why there should be any problem.
But it's not dealing with it as such, it's just the sheer cost of putting the cameras up. Because if you remember when they put the congestion charge in the centre of London, it was Ken Livingstone, wasn't it? It was the mayor, and his maths was all based on a certain number of people using it. I mean, they could never get their story quite straight on that. In fact, it was almost too successful, because they said it was supposed to deter people from driving into central London, and actually it sort of did.
Yeah.
But that meant their sums didn't work, because their maths was predicated on a lot of people just accepting it and paying it, and also on a certain number of people not paying it and getting fined. And all of their sums for the paying for the infrastructure, which was hugely expensive, all those ANPR cameras, they're not cheap. And they have to be linked to a central database somewhere that manages all this stuff, and then the processes for sending out fines and stuff like that. And if you think about having to camera the whole of essentially sort of... it's not even inner London, is it? I mean, the North Circular is up to Wembley, and then the south, it's sort of right down, goes down sort of towards...
although...
Where does it go, in fact? I don't really know.
Although the number of points at which a road crosses the North Circular, the gaps between the roads crossing the North Circular and the South Circular are much bigger than the gaps between the roads crossing the boundary of the inner London congestion zone, I guess. That said, no, I'm sure it's a load more cameras, I'm sure.
But I'm concerned about this because this week my attention was drawn to a lovely old Goodwood Invader that I'm seriously considering buying, and my Sora isn't going to meet Euro 4, 6 or anything. It's a 22-year-old Japanese car. That's just not going to happen. So the best option for me is probably to do what we've been discussing flippantly on this programme over the last year or so, and that is to buy this Goodwood Invader, rip out the Essex block and put in an electric motor and battery pack, use it as my London drive, my little commuter car, and turn it into an electric car. That would avoid me having to pay 20 quid every day I go out in it. I mean, that's just not sustainable.
But that's the idea. I mean, this is why I say I have mixed feelings about it. It would affect me as somebody that has a car that is not going to meet those emission standards and is in London, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't honestly have a problem with that kind of charge being introduced to modify people's behaviour, because we have to change people's behaviour about the way that you know internal combustion engines vehicles are used, in particular in heavily populated areas. I don't have a problem with government doing that. It's up to me whether I decide to be a bit of a stick in the mud petrol head and just go, sod it, I'm going to hang on to my silly old polluting vehicle that I happen to love and pay for the privilege, or sell it and buy something that would enable me to avoid that charge. And let's remember that because I live in London, I do not need a car, and I'm not under any illusion that I need a car. I want a car, and that's why I have a car, and I want that car, and that's why I've got that car.
But I think you're forgetting those people who have a car because they need a car and they can't afford anything. You know, I don't know that. Well, if you look at the threshold for petrol cars, I wonder where it would come in and what you could sort of get, and whether into the territory of where you could buy a Euro 4 compliant.
Yeah, it's going to be a hybrid
car. Well, no, if it's just the threshold, as usual with sort of where the government legislative behaviour when it comes to cars, they don't understand cars enough to get it right. You know, in the same way that when the congestion charge came in, they said, if your car's a hybrid, it's exempt. And it included like the Lexus RX, which actually emitted more CO2 than many non-hybrid petrol cars, you know, sort of, you know, a Citroen C1 or something.
Yeah,
but the C1 would pay the congestion charge and the Lexus wouldn't, because it was a CO2-based system. And now this sort of trying to clean up the air more locally is a much better idea, because, we don't want our children breathing in particulates and stuff like that.
At least they're being a bit more honest about it this time, because previously it's always been called a congestion charge, and it wasn't really a congestion charge, it was an air quality or air pollution charge.
No, but that was part of it.
It will reduce congestion.
I don't think there's anything dishonest about it. I don't think it's...
But this time they're being very upfront about it. At least they're calling it a ULEZ, an ultra-low emissions zone, which is not a bad thing. I've said it before, I live in London. You can hear all the traffic around, the police cars you've heard as we've been recording this programme. There's an awful lot of traffic and an awful lot of particulates in the air.
So the bottom line, are we hanging on to our vehicles that are going to cause us problems once the zone is in operation?
I bet we do.
Are we going to make any changes?
I bet we do, as long as we possibly can. You've been listening to a slightly concerned Zog.
Goodbye.
A slightly worried Richard. Are you worried?
No, not really.
I'm slightly concerned about the cost myself. I was Gareth. We're going to take a break after this show because it's the summer. The F1 break is with us. So the next show will be our summer music compilation. And we'll see you when F1 gets going again. See ya.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones!